My name is Carol Carter, and I'm 29 years old. If you looked at me on paper, you'd probably call me steady. I work as a financial analyst, the kind of person who notices patterns, builds plans, and thrives in predictability. To some people, that sounds boring. To me, it's safety, it's control. But love has always been the one variable I let myself be reckless about. I've been with my boyfriend Daniel for 3 years. He's charming, spontaneous, the sort of man who thrives in a spotlight I've never wanted. Valentine's Day for him is like a personal holiday. Red roses, public declarations, expensive dinners, the sort of gestures that live forever on Instagram. For me, Valentine's has always felt like, well, just another Tuesday. But I played along because it made him happy, and because I loved him. At least I thought I did. This year, I had decided to go further than ever before. I wanted to surprise him. No, to prove something. Prove that I wasn't just the safe, cautious one who never took risks. I booked a reservation at a Michelin-starred restaurant a month in advance. I ordered flowers to be delivered straight to his office, a cascading display of lilies and red roses so extravagant they would stop conversations. And on my desk, in a small, velvet blue box, sat a diamond-studded watch. Sleek, sophisticated. It had cost me more than my first car. It was more than jewelry. It was my way of saying, I see you, I choose you, you matter to me. At noon, while I was in the middle of a strategy meeting at work, my phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting a quick love you, or maybe a picture of him opening the flowers. Instead, I saw his message. Hey babe, so sorry. The guys are having a meltdown about their relationships. We're doing an emergency night out. I'll make it up to you tomorrow. Promise. Love you. I stared at the text until the words blurred together. An emergency night out? On Valentine's Day? My colleagues' voices faded into white noise as my pulse thudded in my ears. It wasn't just the cancellation. It was the casual way he said it, like my time, my plans, didn't matter. Like I would always be there tomorrow, waiting, no questions asked. A single sentence, breezy and dismissive, carried the weight of every uneasy moment I'd been ignoring for months. The way he talked about my safe job like it was a flaw. His pointed comments about other women's expensive gifts. The constant digs disguised as jokes. This wasn't a one-off. It was the final data point in a pattern I could no longer ignore. I felt something inside me settle, like a ledger balancing itself. My relationship with Daniel wasn't just failing. It was a bad investment. And it was time to cut my losses. But I wasn't going to walk away quietly. He'd made a public spectacle of disregarding me, whether he realized it or not. So I decided to make a public spectacle too. Only mine wouldn't be about bitterness. It would be about clarity. I left the office early. I called the restaurant and canceled our reservation. I redirected the flowers to the children's wing of the local hospital. And I drove across town to a women's shelter I had read about once in a magazine, The Haven, a safe place for women and children escaping abusive homes. When I walked inside, I was greeted by the director, a silver-haired woman named Margaret, with kind, sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. I told her I had a Valentine's gift that was no longer needed and that I wanted to donate it. I handed her the small velvet box. She opened it, her breath catching as she stared at the watch glittering inside. This is incredible," she whispered. "Are you sure?" I surprised myself with the steadiness of my answer. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. But I wasn't done, not yet. "Margaret," I asked gently, "I know this is unusual, but would it be all right if I filmed a short video here? Nothing intrusive, nothing that shows anyone's face, just me. I think it might help encourage others to give too." She hesitated. I could see the protective instinct in her eyes. But then she nodded. "If you keep it respectful, yes." I set up my phone on a chair. The frame was simple. Me, Margaret's hands holding the watch box, and the shelter's logo on the wall behind us. Then I hit record. I spoke from the rawest place inside me. "Hi, everyone. My name is Carol. Today is Valentine's Day, and like a lot of people, I had plans. I bought these flowers, this gift, for someone I care about very much. But life happens, plans change, and I was left with a choice. I could sit in disappointment, or I could turn it into something better." I gestured toward the watch. This was meant to be a symbol of love for one person, but today it's going to become a symbol of hope for many. I'm here at the Haven, an incredible organization that helps women and children rebuild their lives. I'm donating this gift to them in the hope that it can keep their work going. I paused, looking directly at the camera. So if your Valentine's Day didn't go the way you dreamed, you're not alone. And maybe the best way to heal a broken heart is to help someone else mend theirs. Happy Valentine's Day. I stopped recording, thanked Margaret, and left. That night, I sat in my apartment with a glass of red wine, staring at the edit I'd made on my phone. It was short, sincere, and stripped of drama. I didn't mention Daniel. I didn't need to. I posted it not on my personal page, but on a local community news forum. I added the shelter's donation link, a couple hashtags. #Valentine's Day, #Pay It Forward. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. By morning, everything had changed. My video had exploded. It was everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, even local TV segments were replaying it. My inbox was full of strangers thanking me. The shelter had received a flood of donations overnight. And me? I was suddenly being called an angel, a hero. But as I scrolled through the flood of praise, I couldn't stop wondering one thing. What was Daniel thinking, seeing all of this? I was about to find out. When my phone lit up the next morning, it wasn't with the usual quiet stream of work emails. It was a tidal wave. Notifications stacked on top of each other, buzzing until the vibration sounded like a trapped bee on my desk. My video had gone viral. Not a few hundred shares viral. I was on the morning news. Local radio DJs were playing the clip on air. Twitter threads were dissecting my words, strangers calling me the Valentine's Angel. The Haven's director emailed me at dawn. Donations had poured in overnight, more in 12 hours than they usually received in 6 months. She told me women had called the shelter in tears, saying the video gave them hope. My heart swelled at the thought. For the first time in months, I felt powerful. Not in a boastful way, in a real way, like maybe my pain hadn't been wasted. But it wasn't long before reality intruded. Around noon, Daniel's name flashed on my screen. A single text at first. "My phone is blowing up. What did you do?" I didn't reply. An hour later, he called. I let it ring out. Then came the voicemail. His voice was tight, angry, incredulous. "Carol, what the hell is this? My mom just called me asking if we broke up. That video is everywhere. You donated my watch, the one you bought for me. You had no right. Call me back." His watch. The entitlement in those 2 words was breathtaking. He had never seen the gift, never even known it existed. But already in his mind, it belonged to him. I still didn't respond. Silence, I knew, was sometimes the sharpest weapon. But Daniel wasn't going to sit in silence. That afternoon, he launched his counterattack. A long, tear-streaked story appeared on his Instagram. A close-up selfie, eyes red, lips trembling, that practiced look of raw vulnerability he'd perfected years ago. His caption read like a manifesto. He claimed we'd had a small disagreement, and that in a fit of toxic rage, I had staged the entire donation video to humiliate him. He said the watch was already his, a gift I'd cruelly taken back, and that I was manipulating the public to make him look like a monster. It was the kind of fiction only someone desperate could believe, and yet, some did. Within minutes, his loyal circle of friends jumped into the fray, amplifying his post. "She's always been controlling. He's been dealing with her toxic behavior for years. This isn't charity, it's emotional abuse." They painted me as a cold, calculating woman who had used a noble cause as a weapon of revenge. And for a moment, just a brief, stomach-twisting moment, the tide of public opinion wavered. I read comments that cut deep. "Maybe she is manipulative. This feels staged. Who records themselves donating?" Poor guy. Imagine being humiliated like that. It felt like I was drowning in a sea of strangers' voices, my truth slipping away under layers of accusation. But I reminded myself of one thing. Numbers never lie. Evidence doesn't lie. And I had all of it. I didn't rush to clap back. That's what Daniel wanted. A messy, public, mudslinging match. Instead, I waited. By evening, a local news blogger, the same one who had written a glowing piece about my donation, reached out for comment on Daniel's accusations. I replied with calm precision. "I am saddened by these false claims, but I am not surprised. My only intention was to turn a painful situation into something good for a worthy cause. The decision to end my relationship came after Daniel canceled our plans via text on Valentine's Day. As for the gift, it was never in his possession. It was mine until I donated it to the Haven. Then I sent her 2 attachments. The first, A screenshot of the receipt for the watch, timestamped Valentine's morning. The second, Daniel's cancellation text, the one where he casually dismissed me with a breezy guy's night. Undeniable facts. A perfect timeline. An hour later, the blogger updated her article. The headline alone dismantled Daniel's entire narrative. Valentine's angel's boyfriend cries theft. Receipts say otherwise. Side by side, the article laid out the truth. Watch purchased by me at 10 a.m. His cancellation text at noon. My donation at 3 a.m. The internet doesn't like liars. The comments flipped overnight. So you're mad because she donated a gift you didn't even know about after you ditched her? Entitlement much? This man fumbled the bag, then set it on fire. She literally raised thousands for a shelter and you're crying about your ego? Daniel's Instagram comments turned into a bonfire. What had been sympathy now turned into mockery. His so-called friends quietly deleted their supportive posts, leaving him stranded in his own mess. For a brief moment, I thought it might end there, that my evidence, my calm truth, would be enough. But deep down, I knew Daniel. I knew how he hated to lose. And I knew this wasn't just about a watch or a canceled dinner. His rage came from somewhere deeper, somewhere uglier. That night, as I lay in bed with my phone face down, I let the thought creep in. What if his emergency guy's night wasn't even real? His panic, his frantic lies, they didn't feel like guilt about being caught off guard. They felt like fear of something else being uncovered. And once the idea took root, it wouldn't let go. By morning, I'd made my decision. I was going to find out the truth. Not just about his Valentine's plans, but about everything. Because if there was one thing my job had taught me, it was this. When the numbers don't add up, it's because someone is lying. And I was done being lied to. Suspicion is like smoke. It curls into your lungs before you even realize the fire has started. After Daniel's meltdown on social media, after his friends tried to spin me as some villain and failed, I couldn't stop replaying his text in my head. Emergency guy's night. It didn't feel right. His rage, his desperation, his frantic scrambling to control the story. It wasn't just the embarrassment of my video, it was something else. Something he didn't want uncovered. I'd spent years analyzing data, spotting inconsistencies, and Daniel's story had more holes than a sinking ship. The morning after the public feud, I called a private investigator, a man named Harris, former cop, sharp-eyed, soft-spoken, the kind of man who could slip into a crowd unnoticed. I gave him one task: find out where Daniel was on Valentine's night and who he was with. It took Harris less than 24 hours. When he called me the next evening, I was sitting on my couch, nursing a glass of wine I hadn't really tasted. His voice was calm, clinical. Your boyfriend wasn't with his friends. I felt my chest tighten. Then where was he? At a restaurant on the other side of town. Upscale, intimate. Table for two. The silence stretched so long he finally added, and he wasn't alone. I swallowed. My voice came out sharper than I meant. Who? He sighed. A woman named Sabrina. From what I could confirm, his ex-girlfriend. My stomach dropped. Sabrina. The name I hadn't heard in years, except when Daniel swore she was ancient history. That chapter of his life had been closed, buried, forgotten. Or so I thought. Harris sent me the proof within minutes. Credit card records, a copy of the reservation, and then the photo. A grainy but undeniable shot from inside the restaurant. Daniel and Sabrina sitting close, leaning across the table, his hand covering hers. The kind of gesture you don't mistake for friendship. I stared at the photo until my vision blurred. All the pieces slid into place. The sudden cancellation, the anger, the entitlement, the desperate lies. It wasn't just that he ditched me. It was that he didn't want the world to see who he'd traded me for. I felt cold, not angry, not even heartbroken, just cold, like my blood had turned to ice in my veins. I thanked Harris and told him to hold on to everything. I didn't need to confront Daniel yet. No, timing mattered. Evidence mattered. If he thought he could turn the court of public opinion against me, I would let him try, and then I would end it with a single blow. Meanwhile, Daniel's world was already unraveling without my help. His Instagram turned into a battlefield. Strangers flooded his posts with ridicule. So you're upset she donated a watch you didn't even know existed? Entitlement is off the charts. Bro, you didn't just fumble the bag, you threw it into a fire sale. His friends, the ones who had eagerly joined his smear campaign, quietly backed away. Some even deleted their posts, pretending they'd never defended him. Sabrina, too, seemed to vanish. She deleted her social media within a week, her name dragged through comment sections as people speculated. Who was she? Why was Daniel hiding her? The scandal didn't stop at personal humiliation. Daniel's family started to feel the heat. His father owned a local business. Image mattered. Clients whispered. Deals stalled. And when the blogger updated her article again, this time hinting at a possible affair, the whispers turned into roars. I didn't have to imagine the conversation inside their household. I knew his parents, proud, polished, the kind of people who valued reputation above all. And I knew the moment would come when they'd force him to apologize, not for love, not for me, but for optics. Sure enough, within 2 weeks, I heard from mutual acquaintances that his parents were livid. They wanted him to clean up the mess, admit his mistakes, and salvage what was left of their family name. But Daniel, he refused. He couldn't bear to admit defeat, not to me, not to anyone. So instead, he doubled down. He stopped posting, stopped defending himself online. He disappeared from the public eye, but not from mine. I started noticing his presence in quieter ways, a seen mark on my stories, a profile watching from the shadows, the digital version of someone lurking just outside your window. It unnerved me, but I stayed calm. He was unraveling, and unraveling people are dangerous, but predictable. 2 months passed. The noise faded, though the stain on his name remained. He was jobless, friendless, a pariah in a city that had once praised his charisma. And then, one night, long after midnight, I heard a knock on my door. It wasn't loud, just persistent. When I opened it, I almost didn't recognize him. Daniel stood there, gaunt and unshaven, his shoulders slumped under the weight of his own downfall. The arrogant man who once thrived on admiration was gone. In his place stood someone hollow. "Carol," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Please, can we talk?" The sight of him stirred something I didn't expect. Not pity exactly, but recognition. This was the real Daniel, stripped of charm and ego, a man who'd burned his bridges and now had nowhere left to go. Part of me wanted to slam the door. Another part wanted to let him speak, if only to hear the truth spill out of his own mouth. So I stepped aside, just enough to let him enter. The moment the door closed, he broke. Tears, apologies, frantic words tumbling over each other. He said Sabrina meant nothing, that he had made a mistake, that I was the one he loved, the one he needed. He begged for forgiveness, begged for a second chance. His voice cracked under the weight of desperation. I listened, silent, still, my mind playing back the photo Harris had given me, the evidence I hadn't yet shown him, the final card I was holding. And as he sobbed in front of me, I knew the moment had come to play it. Daniel stood in my living room like a shadow of the man I once loved. His clothes were wrinkled, his hands trembled, and his eyes, once so sure of themselves, were hollowed out with exhaustion. "Carol," he said, his voice breaking, "I messed up. I know that. But Sabrina didn't mean anything. It was a stupid, weak moment. I thought I wanted closure, but all it did was show me how much I need you. Please, please don't shut me out." His words spilled out in waves, frantic, disjointed. He talked about how everyone had turned on him, how his friends abandoned him, how his parents, ashamed and furious, had cut off his support, how Sabrina had vanished once the scandal grew too loud. "I lost everything," he whispered. "My job, my family's respect, my reputation. But I can live with all that. What I can't live with is losing you. You're the only one who ever believed in me. Please, let me fix this." He reached for my hands, but I stepped back. His desperation pressed against me like a storm, but I wasn't going to let it pull me under. I let him ramble for a few more minutes. The same apologies, the same pleas, the same promises I'd heard in different forms before. And when his words finally ran dry, I spoke for the first time. "Daniel." His head snapped up, hope flickering in his eyes at the sound of his name on my lips. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. The photo appeared instantly, the one Harris had given me. Daniel and Sabrina, hand in hand across that candlelit table on Valentine's night. I turned the screen toward him. For a moment, he just stared. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again, but no words came. The color drained from his face as the last of his lies shattered between us. "I know everything," I said quietly. "I've known since the beginning." He staggered back a step like the truth had physically struck him. His shoulders slumped. His hands fell limp at his sides. "Carol?" he whispered. But there was nothing left for him to say. Every excuse, every performance, every manipulation had crumbled under the weight of a single picture. The silence stretched, heavy, final, and then he dropped to his knees. "I'm begging you," he said, his voice raw. "Please, just let me stay here tonight. I don't have anywhere else to go. I'll sleep on the floor, the couch, anywhere. Just don't send me back out there. I'm drowning." Tears streamed down his face. For the first time, I saw him without masks, without charm, without pride. Just a man stripped bare by his own choices. But sympathy is not the same as forgiveness. I crouched down slightly, meeting his eyes. "You had a home," I said, my voice steady. "You had a woman who loved you, who gave you everything she could, and you traded it all for a dinner with your ex. That was your choice, and now you have to live with it." He sobbed, shaking his head violently. "I didn't know what I was doing." "Yes, you did," my tone sharpened. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You thought I'd always be here, that I'd forgive, overlook, excuse. But Daniel, I'm done being the safety net you fall into when your games collapse." I stood. His hands reached toward me, desperate, trembling. "Please, Carol, don't end it like this." But it was already over. I walked to the door, opened it wide, and looked back at him one last time. My revenge was never about the watch or the flowers. It was about showing you and myself the true value of things. You valued attention, lies, fleeting thrills. I value loyalty, self-respect, and now I value my peace more than I ever valued you. With that, I stepped aside. "Goodbye, Daniel." He stayed frozen for a moment, his face crumpling under the weight of reality. Then, slowly, he dragged himself to his feet and stumbled past me, out into the night. I closed the door behind him. The sound of the latch clicking echoed like the closing of a chapter I should have ended long ago. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt free. Not triumphant, not vindictive, just free. I walked back into my living room, the silence wrapping around me like a new beginning. And as I sat down, I realized something profound. My story wasn't just about betrayal or revenge. It was about rediscovering myself, about learning that love should never cost you your dignity, that the truest victory isn't proving someone else wrong. It's choosing yourself when they fail to. In the end, Daniel got what he deserved, and so did I. Because while he was left with nothing, I walked away with everything that mattered: my self-respect, my freedom, and the unshakable knowledge that I would never again settle for less.